Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Can
Can you hear
you?
me?
Yep, can hear you. Can you hear me and see
Yes.
me okay?
Yes,
I'm a
yes.
bit singing, but we shall bear with this.
It's okay. Never mind.
Mhm.
Uh, okay. So hello everyone. Welcome to another IG Live Q&A with Jingyun and I. Jingyun, I'm gonna put the questions in.
Yep. Moment. Oh, they cut off halfway and I can't. If I get out of here to go Telegram, will it bump me out of the IG live?
It's okay. It's okay. We'll just read the rest.
Okay, sure.
I'll do my
Brr.
best. Okay. So we had quite a number of questions this time. Seems like a whole bunch of people really like metal and hardcore singing.
Yeah.
Um, so we've kind of like bunched a bunch of the similar questions together. So the
Hmm.
first question is, would you ever consider doing hardcore vocals? I think we'll pass this to Singing first.
Yeah. So I was asking the person who asked the question to expand more on what they meant by hardcore vocals. They didn't expand on it, but they were just talking about like metal rock stuff in general. So, and I'm not sure if they were asking whether I would do it or whether we as a collaborative project might eventually branch into it. But in terms of my personal thing, I'm classically trained, Western classically trained, and I really like metal and rock music. But I've only dabbled in it maybe like for the past 1 year, and my vocal coach for that is Pamela Song in Singapore. So that's my personal answer. As for whether or not Move Your Voice would ever dabble into it, that would be nice, but both of us are not very experienced in it, even though we do both like listening to metal and rock music in our own time. So that's something that we would be interested to explore more about, to be more able to speak about it and to guide people through it in terms of training and also building their vocal and physical capacity to do the things they want to do in more extreme vocal technique. Yeah. Then,
Mm.
since we're on the topic of this, we had two questions related to metal and rock singing, or rather, let's just call it extreme vocal technique. Okay, stuff that doesn't require the true vocal folds. The first question was, how do I get texture in my voice? It's too clean now. So in metal and rock singing, right, they talk about singing as in clean sound, meaning just your true vocal folds are being engaged. So like, ha, and it can be true vocal folds with brightness, ha, 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 or you add sound to it, which I can't really do, so I'm not going to demonstrate it. So clean singing, true vocal folds is the main thing creating the sound. And then when you think about distortion or noise, there are different forms of distortion. So what can you do as a singer to create distortion? You could technically create some irregularities in how you close your true vocal folds, but that will really be quite tiring and sketchy to do. So what people do is to learn how to coordinate their false vocal folds, which is above the true vocal folds. They also learn how to use their arytenoids or the AES, epiglottic sphincter, to create rattling sounds and to create a more extreme bright sound like this, so that it creates a rattle. They also learn how to use their uvula, which is the little dangling thing at the back of your throat, and then you can create uvula against your tongue as well. Some people also learn how to use the palate to create noise. And lastly, you also have air and saliva that can create noise. So knowing all these different things you can move in your vocal tract allows you to then have more options to create noise. And to answer the question, how do I get texture in my voice? It's too clean now. So my first question to you is, are you currently singing in more of a head dominant or chest dominant sound? Because if you're in the person who asked this has testosterone altered voice, so assuming you're singing in your head mix, then you might want to strengthen your ability to use your head mix by incorporating a little bit more AAS constriction, so that you get a brighter sound that sounds more cutting. Then that way it doesn't sound so pure. Then after that, you can consider whether or not you like to add noise based on vocal folds, true false folds, AS, all the stuff that I mentioned previously, and then think about the air and then also the amount of saliva you want to include into the sound. So that's in general how you could go about doing it. As for how you would do it safely, work in a lower part of your vocal range where you feel like you can at least sustain the sound for at least 5 seconds without feeling scratchy, tired, or like the sound just stops without you intending for it to stop first. And then after that, you can experiment with the different distortions or even brightness, darkness on that first before you go to a higher pitch. This is to make sure that your vocal practice isn't a short 5-minute long practice, so you can try more things within the same day without hurting yourself, without being too tired the next day, because you likely have other social things you want to do with your voice. Yeah, that's all I have for this question. Do you have more to add?
I think you were talking about capacity, like working within the capacity to make sure that you don't exceed what, because you're going to do other social things with your voice, you would talk to people and stuff like that. Yeah, so because your vocal folds are made of collagenous and tendinous fibers, tendon meaning like muscles and tendons. So it's mainly made of like collagen, but also made of some muscle fibers. It can take longer to heal. So you really need to think of, and the vocal folds function better when you practice at a state where it's just like within 50 or 60% of your amount of effort that you need to do the vocal technique, so that it never reaches a point where it's like really grating on it, so that you give it enough space and time to recover. Yeah, and it does take a very long time just because of the nature of the tissue. So like how, for example, climbers would need more time in order to climb harder and harder routes, because their muscles might be okay with climbing all of these routes, but then the tendons in the fingers and in the wrists and in the shoulders, like just hanging and stuff like that, they will take much longer to adapt to these stresses. So same thing with the the vocal cords, like they take longer. So you're just going to need to, when you're thinking of trying to expand how long you can hold something for, like maybe now you can do 5 seconds, you need to think very, very long term, like, okay, I want to work towards like 7 seconds in like a month, something like that. And then check in with your recovery, like I did 5 seconds today, on the next day, how do I feel? And then like 48 hours after that, and then also 72 hours after that, check in with how well you are recovering. And then you can see like how much you can push yourself as well. Obviously, as you keep doing the technique, your body will get more and more efficient at doing the technique. So your recovery time might get shorter and shorter as you go along. So just check 24-hour mark, 48-hour mark, and 72-hour mark, and see how you feel.
I'll add on to that shortly after I introduce the third question, which is how to use vocal fry to sing metal or screamo. So before I talk about like how you would build yourself up towards what they call a fry scream, let's talk briefly about fry scream, right? So even though it has the word fry in it, it doesn't actually have anything to do with what we call vocal fry, which is this sound when your true vocal folds are not vibrating with the whole body. Why it's called fry scream is because Melissa Cross, who is this vocal coach who works with metal singers, you can watch her documentary on Vice on YouTube. She talks about how it's the aperiodicity of how the vocal folds come together during a fry that sounds similar to how you would do a fry scream. Now, I'm not very experienced with the differentiation of the different screams and growls and distortions in metal, but from what I watch for fun, they talk about fry scream being a combination of the false folds coming together and also the shaking of like tissues in the palatal and uvular region of your vocal tract. So how you would build up to that, assuming you know how to do the basic coordination needed for the false vocal folds to come together, you want to start with really, really short amount of time. So something like just like that. I can barely do it, as you can see. And then after that, if that feels manageable, try to expand half a second to 1 second. If that feels okay, go to 2 seconds. If 2 seconds feels scratchy, stop, wait, hydrate, do something else, or don't use your voice at all. When you feel like the scratchiness has gone, come back to practice again. You might even, after trying for just 1 second, your body is like, this is weird, this is foreign, I'm not gonna do this again. Then you get tension there. Then when you try to do it again, you might have phlegm and stuff like that. That's your body's way of telling you, please stop. We need to rest. This is, it feels dangerous. So it's not to say that you can never touch it again, but as Kes mentioned earlier, it's about coming back to it later on and also gauging how much time and how your recovery is like after trying something that might be irritating to your vocal tract. So going back to the question, how do you use vocal fry to sing metal or screamo? We can't talk about how to do it, but in terms of how you would structure your practice, get used to the coordination first, do slowly, check in with how it feels internally. Does it feel scratchy? Is there pain? Are you getting more phlegm? Do you feel really dry? And then after that, proceed with caution and patience. Now, in terms of how you would practice vocal distortions, you want to make sure that before you do the distortion, you do warm up your breath, because how you use your breath and the support to compress the air below your vocal folds will affect how effective this coordination would be when you try to do it. So you can do stuff like choking. And you can do basic glides across your vocal range just to get the vocal fold region activated before you go into practicing the noise. And after you have done this, you might want to do warming down exercises such as gentle sighs, and then similarly the exercise to kind of reset the muscles and structures around the region where you were working, just so that you can come back to normal speaking habits a little bit easier. Yep, that's all I have to say for this.
Okay, so you were talking about how there might be a point in time where they try it and then the body responds in a way that's like telling them to stop, right? So like some level of strain has happened, and I think one of the ways that you can try and calm your body down is to, other than just completely stopping, you can also try and sing or make sounds that are comfortable, like extremely comfortable for you, like 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, and just get your body to realize that making sound is not a scary thing or something that causes tension. So yeah, you can start with the sounds that Jingyun talked about just now, like the or kind of sounds first, then other sounds that are comfortable for you, like really, really comfortable, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 level for you. Yeah, spend some time doing that. Yeah, because that might help ease some of the tension. Yeah, that might help ease some of the tension.
To hydrate, especially when you're working with this, because you might end up pushing a lot more air than you're used to, and then your vocal tract might feel very dehydrated. So make sure that you hydrate before your voice practice, not just during, because it takes time for the water to reach the rest of your body in a systemic manner. Yeah. Someone says yes to that. I don't know what they're saying yes to.
to drinking, to hydrating, I think.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Yay!
And also, like, if you want to also drink some salt water, like just a little pinch of salt.
Which is what I have.
That helps to hydrate. But yes, you also want to do that earlier. So maybe like, as if you're going to exercise, like, yeah. So it'll be like 30 to 40 minutes before your session. Yeah, so salt water and then water on top of that as well, without the salt. Yeah.
That's all we have for the third question. So the next question we have is, saw the post about nasal or mouth breathing. Which one is better for singing pop or rock? So this person is referring to the vocal post by vocal ABAL. You can see it on my story. I reshared it earlier. They talk about nasal versus mouth breathing, and in general, they talked about how the advantages for mouth breathing is that the singers can take in more air more quickly, but the disadvantages is that surface hydration of the true vocal folds will deplete really fast, and also mouth breathing will increase the phonation threshold pressure, which means that it takes more time for the vocal folds to start vibrating between inhalation and phonation. Now, in terms of the nasal breathing, what the post talks about is then the advantages is that it will warm up there. There's more like moisture, so you protect your vocal folds better. And also, it creates lower phonation threshold pressure, which is the opposite of what we just talked about for mouth breathing, such that it takes less time for the vocal folds to start vibrating between inhalation and exhalation. The disadvantages is that it's difficult to quickly take a large amount of air. Before I answer this question, I had a question for Kes, which is it true that it's difficult to take in a large amount of air through your nose as opposed to your mouth? And second question is there a way to train the volume of nose breathing you can do?
I mean, in general, it would be easier, like if we were to just compare like the volume of air, if you count like in 1 second, if you breathe really deeply through your nose or like through your mouth, like yeah, I guess it would be easier in some ways to take in air through the mouth. However, you can train how well you can breathe through your nose and how quickly you can breathe through your nose and how much air you can take in. So just practicing nasal breathing, that can be like increasing the length of time that you can take in air through your nose, and then increasing the amount of time you can exhale air as well, and then the speed at which you can inhale air through your nose, like as much as possible, like really, really try and inhale as much as possible, and then hold the breath, and then try and expel air as quickly from your nose as possible also. Because, I mean, it's not just the muscles around the nose will have to work, and the muscles in the sinus cavities as well. But it's also like the accessory breathing muscles. So like your neck muscles, like the anterior neck muscles, the chest, the back muscles, like quadratus lumborum, which is the lower back muscle, which helps with exhalation and stretches when you inhale. And then your lungs as well. Like it really helps with that. And you can also do like single nostril breathing. Same thing, like warming up with like longer breaths first, and then longer breaths on the right, and then using both breath nostrils to breathe through. I would check out, like, there's so many breathwork people these days. It's like such a cool thing now. You can check out like the Wim Hof method. You can check out yoga breathing exercises and techniques. They have a lot of ways to build your capacity for nostril breathing. So like single nostril breathing, double nostril breathing, breathing in really fast, breathing out really fast, taking a long time to breathe in, taking a long time to breathe out, be able to hold your breath. Yeah, you can try and work on all of those things. And then, another thing that you can also look for is this thing called apnea training. So apnea, like APNEA, like sleep apnea. So apnea training specifically for like free diving usually. Yeah, so you can look at that as well. Like just helps you train your breath, and you have a lot of different programs which you can run over a course of like months or weeks for you to work on your breath very specifically. Yeah. Yeah, so you can go down those rabbit holes and check it out. Yeah.
That's super interesting because like in the voice lessons I have attended, we never spoke specifically about nose breathing or mouth breathing. It was more like do whichever works as long as it feels easeful, and then it doesn't feel like you're tensing up like this region of your body when you are inhaling, such that the inhalation doesn't affect the phonation later on. So it's pretty cool that now that you say like there's so many ways you can build how we breathe.
Build your capacity for breathing. Yes.
Yeah.
Build your capacity and strategies for breathing, like just working on just the breath outside of vocalization. Then you can add vocalization into the exercises as well that you learn from apnea training or yogic breath work or the Wim Hof method. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to the question, which is they saw the post that we mentioned earlier, and the person asked which one is better for singing pop or rock, nasal or mouth breathing. Now, I don't think it's this is 100% better than the other one. It's more so about what do you need in the setting when you're singing. So firstly, thinking about hydration of the vocal folds. If you know that you're going to be singing in a cold and really dry place for pretty long, you might want to practice breathing through your nose for certain parts of the song so that you give your vocal folds more protection from dryness for the span of the set that you have to sing or use your voice for. But if you feel like it's a humid enough environment, or you just feel that you don't get dry very easily, go ahead and do mouth breathing. Now, the thing is, however, for example, if you're doing classical singing, the singing technique is such that your soft palate has to be raised pretty much all the time. So mouth breathing is more beneficial because between your phonation, inhalation, and phonation, your vocal posture stays more or less the same rather than having to breathe and then the soft palate comes down. And then when you want to sing, the soft palate comes up again. Yeah, so for classical singing, for example, it might be better for mouth breathing, but I have seen classical singers who do use nose breathing. And of course, it depends also on how much time you have to breathe between phrases as well. Because if it's a succession of phrases, then you probably want to just breathe through the mouth so that you don't have to change your vocal posture as much. Now, going back to pop or rock, because you would have different palatal positions and laryngeal positions for pop or rock, depending on the style and the subgenre, how loud it is, how fast it is. It's really up to you what feels most easeful and the most effective for you to sing the thing that you want to sing. And
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say for that.
Yeah, and it really depends on like what movement strategies you have in terms of like your breath. Like and also the ability to coordinate really quickly for singing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's both. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I can really breathe with my mouth like in the singing position. Like I feel like I have to like do a lot to do it. Maybe because it's unfamiliar for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have a similar thing. It would be weird to breathe through my mouth a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's all for the fourth question. How are we with time? Oh yeah, we still have time. Okay, the fifth question is, should a student be focused towards achieving vibrato as one of the cornerstones of training? Okay, let's talk about what vibrato is. Vibrato is the sound that we hear when a fundamental pitch has changes in pitch and also in the loudness. So instead of ooh, it's, sorry, not good demonstration. Ah, it becomes ah, or ah, if people want to exaggerate it. Or in classical singing, ah. So that's what vibrato is to the ear. In terms of what's happening physiologically, there's research being done, but it's not definitive as to what's happening. But there's an agreement that vibrato happens as a result of good coordination or balanced coordination of the body, breath, and voice on a vocal fold level, such that the air pressure allows the structures there to move freely and to help release excess tension during the sustaining of one pitch. So that's what's been explored. So that's what vibrato is. Now the question asks whether or not vibrato should be the focus of voice training. I think it really depends on what style of singing you're approaching in your training. If you're doing Western classical, yes, vibrato is a very large part of it. However, vibrato is not the end goal. Vibrato is a result of having to release certain muscular and like bone cartilage structure around the vocal tract for you to optimize your natural resonance so that you don't need a mic to sing. And as a result, the vocal mechanism can have vibrato. So it just so happens that this has become the tradition of Western classical singing, and this is what we now associate as the vocal aesthetic appropriate for classical singing. So with regard to classical singing, not an end goal, but it would be something that you want to have an option of adding to your vocal choices during your performances. Within classical singing as well, you have early music that has less vibrato, and then you have like the late romantic period that has a lot of generous vibrato, and then you come to contemporary classical singing, different degrees as well. I think the question is, Does this vibrato serve the purpose of expression? And does it serve the purpose of carrying the sound through the space? And if it does, then that's great. As for pop, rock, metal, contemporary, commercial styles of music, vibrato is really a color choice more often than not. And very often it's when they're more intimate, more introspective, more expressive, or at the end of belty notes, there's this sense of like, instead of like, stars, stars. So there's this like swell to it, you know, rather than just cutting off immediately. So it's more for affect, how do you pronounce it? Affect, and effect. Yeah, rather than it's an end goal. So what I would say about vibrato is that it's a good indicator of whether or not you're able to use your voice in a more balanced and coordinated manner, which means that you have more sustainable singing habits. But just because you don't have vibrato doesn't mean that you're not singing healthily as well. Especially if you're a beginner singer, you're still learning ways of breathing, of supporting, of moving the structures around. Sometimes trying to focus on getting a vibrato can go the opposite way. You might increase tension in the vocal tract to create a semblance of a vibrato. For example, some people might go "ee" when I'm actually shaking my larynx physically rather than letting the vibrato come naturally. And this just isn't what you want to use. Although there are some genres of music that does use this kind of sound. So to answer the question, not necessarily the cornerstone of training, but it would be a nice option to have as a voice user, depending on what style of singing you are doing. And that's what I have to say. Do you have anything to say about it?
No, I only want to sing vibrato all the time.
Why?
No, just kidding.
It's not like an introspection.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think yeah, in general, when it comes to these things, it's more like a stylistic choice, right, for the expression. Yeah, and then if you have that, it's like if you have that like weapon to use, then or tool. Okay, let's not like make it all attacky and violent. Yeah, if you have the tool to use, then it's like, okay, cool, you have it. But if you don't have it, then it's also okay. Like maybe there are other ways to achieve the same kind of expression choice. Yeah. And there's also like, does it fit your voice and stuff like that and what you're going for? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, nuanced answers.
Okay,
How much
let's move.
vibrato? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like talking about the different types of vibrato is a whole other topic, which is not what the question asked for. So another time.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. 6th question. Discuss unhealthy imprints, manufactured sound, choirs in parentheses, that adds tension to body and voice. So I asked this person for clarification, and let me find it. They talked about their experience of going for choir training for just 1.5 years and how they had to take a super long time to undo things like pressing or unnatural shaping of the mouth and vocal tract to create the choral sound. And then also they talked about how they read a particular journal of voice entry about choral and solo singing and how certain voice types might have more compromised experience with voice use as a result of choral training. And the last thing they talked about is for their own experience when they went into solo voice training, they had to kind of take a step away from choral training to be able to learn how to use their vocal mechanism more optimally. So since the question is talking about like unhealthy imprints, I'll talk about more about why choral conductors might make certain choices for vocalization. So with choir, you are singing in a large group and each vocal section has many, many people. And because different people have different vocal tracks, their natural timbre is very different. So what you need to do is to find a way to blend. And usually the vocal mode that's easier to blend is a hit mix voice. And also an easier way to blend is also to have like higher palate and lower larynx. That's assuming that the goal is to blend. There are, of course, choral music where you can sing as a soloist, but we're just talking about those that need to blend. As a result of that, certain singers might be told to darken, brighten, round, make sharper their tone to blend with the aggregate of everyone else around them. So that's quite common for a lot of people. So that's probably what some people feel when they go through choral training, that they have to do something unnatural to them, because it is true, you're doing something such that your vocal sounds like someone else's. But that might not be the optimal for you. However, it doesn't mean that it will be unhealthy. It just means that if you want to be able to still approach solo singing, you take time outside of your choral training to practice solo singing. So if, for example, for choral singing, you feel like you have to darken your sound and really do a round sound, but for solo singing, you want to have a higher larynx, a brighter sound, more oral resonance, then that's what you need to practice in your time outside of choral training, so that your body knows that you're not just doing choral mode, but you have choral mode and solo mode. So that's what we can understand in terms of the intention of why we would sing a certain way of choral music, and how you could balance that as a voice user if you wanted to do both. Now, unhealthy imprints and how it adds tension to body and voice. Yeah, so there are just certain things. For example, for me, I am a soprano, but for a lot of my life, because I have low notes, I have been put into alto. But my low notes are not dark and they're not heavy. But I've been told by conductors, you have to make it heavier so that you blend and then you don't sound so bright next to your friends. So for me, I did it by retracting my tongue and pushing down my larynx, which carried into my solo singing. This was something I wasn't aware of back then when I was younger. But now that I'm aware of it, I can be like, okay, this is a way of holding tension to create a sound that doesn't serve me anymore. How then can I release it? So yes, tension, but it can be useful tension, and it can be a tension that goes away after you decide to stop doing that coordination. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, what I would want to ask, like, why is it unhealthy? Or why have they described it as unhealthy? Or what's the other word? Like, there's a lot of like
Unnatural?
negative connotation.
Unnatural, right? Yeah,
No, there wasn't like compromised. Yeah.
compromise.
Yeah, like clearly I'm just assuming. Okay, you can tell me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the way you were singing for choral singing it feels like it's really getting in the way, compromising your current pursuit for solo singing and how you wish to sing now, like how you wish to express yourself in solo singing. That feels more natural to you, and maybe even just another. It might not even feel more natural to you. It might just be another form of singing that you're just like. It just feels very different from your choral voice, or strategy of coordinating, for that singing. So yeah, I mean, that was useful for maybe you can think of it as like that was useful for choir singing, but now I'm pursuing this other stuff, and it's okay. Like, this strategy can still remain here if I want to go back to choir singing, but you can also move on to other things. And it doesn't have to feel like it's preventing you or compromising you from pursuing your things. It's just like another way of doing things. Yeah. Yeah. And then if there's tension, you can, depending on the type of tension, we did talk about relaxing tension in the jaw,
This one,
neck.
yeah.
Yeah. So under the base of the tongue. We didn't say exactly, but you can do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I can check out it's in the previous video, I think.
Is it 3 or 2? I think it's 2, right?
I think both have different points of thinking. Yeah.
I did with 2 and 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Can watch it on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I want to add one last thing, which is this person pointed out that where is that phrase they said? Undo things like unnatural shaping of the mouth and vocal tract. The thing about unnatural, right, is that technically our vocal tract was never created for singing, it was just for breathing. But we as humans have developed to learn how to use it in different ways to express ourselves and experience life and do fancy things like make
Like
distortion noise.
speaking,
Yeah, like speaking. Exactly. But then I just
even.
go
Yeah.
like, right? So, I would question like why do we think it's unnatural? Unnatural in respect to what? Speech?
Mm.
If so, then a lot of singing styles are pretty unnatural. You wouldn't go around going like this talking to people, would you? Well, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. And then you wouldn't
Yeah,
go
why
around
not?
as well, right? Unless maybe you really enjoy speaking this way.
Yeah.
So I would question like why do you feel it's unnatural? If you mean it's uncomfortable, it feels unfamiliar, then like yeah, okay, then that's something you can learn to do better and learn to do more reliably in voice training and practice. Mhm.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I would think about what it means, what unnatural means to you, what unhealthy means to you.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, and then like try and think of other ways, other words you can use to describe these two things,
mm,
unhealthy and unnatural. Yeah.
Yep. If you do feel like your voice is getting very tired, then speak to your choral conductor, or if you have a voice
Yeah.
coach attached to your choir, talk to them, or talk to your solo teacher about it. Find ways to strategize to create the sounds you need for either context so that it's sustainable for you. We do talk about how you can like calm your voice down and stuff like that in our first IG live, so you can watch back that if you wanna get some tips on that.
Stefan said
Oh,
had a closed review of the article. Primarily, choral singing emphasizes fundamental resonance, i.e., chest mechanisms versus classical that emphasize resonances at higher frequencies. So often, the interpretation is that choral singers can result in too much weight being pushed past the
passaggio. Oh.
passage. Yeah.
I want to screenshot this, but I'm so scared I'll be like kicked out of IG Live. Stefan, can I trouble you to screenshot this and send it to me? Because I think it's a very different topic when we talk about foreman, managing the
Yes,
passaggio.
like
I think we need a different time to talk about.
yeah,
Hmm.
yes.
Okay.
Sounds like a long topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have another question, but we don't have time to talk about it. I'll just put it here so that for talking about it, you can go and watch our previous videos, which is they wanted us to discuss holding or having music scores on a stand can one to pull head or neck forward. So I think we need to think about the implications of that, and then also how we can strategize the way that we hold the score, and also use the stand in a way that still optimizes the way you're singing. We talk about neck use and like body alignment stuff in IG Live 2 and 3, so you can check that out for more detail. Okay, all we have time for now. Uh, thanks for
Yeah.
joining us.
Okay. We plug our workshop, which
Yes,
the early bird is ending today, like
today
11:59.
in like 5 hours and 21 minutes. So if you're hoping to come for
Yes.
our workshop, please sign up for the workshop now if you want to enjoy the early. Otherwise, after that, you just leave.
Yeah.
Yep,
I mean, if you just want to support us some more so that we can bring you more workshops,
it's fun.
can also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Thank you for those who joined, and thanks for the inputs like that we got today. Next time, do like add on your thoughts and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's really nice to see what people are thinking and also like what questions you have and what you agree and disagree with what we say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it very more interesting.
And more
Okay,
interactive.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, more interactive. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you all soon.
Or end of this
Bye.
week if you're coming for our workshop.
Yes, I end of this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.